قد أفلح المؤمنون.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وصلى الله على خير الخلق أجمعين أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Today we're going to be refuting the Kadhab Adnan Rashid once again. And we have chosen to respond to this shubha because it's a very, very popular one. And we want the brothers and sisters out there, whenever you hear this really dumb shubha, to have a good response, inshallah. And we're going to be showing sources as we usually do. With that being said, let us go ahead and get started.
This religion, it was born in Iraq, in Kufa. This is not from Medina, this is not from Makkah. It's only one place in the world where this religion was born and it was spread, the city of liars, Kufa. He can't deny this.
I'm denying it.
You're saying Shia religion was not born in Kufa?
No.
From the very beginning, we see that this is a very, very old and tired polemic. And the polemic is that essentially Shi'ism equals Kufa, or that Shi'ism was invented or concocted in Kufa. Now, before we get into the refutation, I just want to point out a few things. Number one, notice how our mukhalifin, their lies are so obvious that their stories contradict multiple times. So, for example, often you will hear that Shi'ism was created by Abdullah ibn Saba, it was created by a Jew. Then you will hear, for example, Ibn Hazm claiming that it was invented by the Majus as a way to resurrect the empire. MashaAllah, as in even the Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't have this many parallel universes and parallel Earths. As in the Mukhalifin have been doing the multiverse saga since, only Allah knows. So we would simply ask them, if you're going to make up something, at least be consistent. How many Nasibi laymen are going to get confused by all these different narratives that you get them, and then they don't know which one to choose when they're debating the Shia? Number two, notice that this so-called historian doesn't bring a single evidence to back up any of his claims. If one of us were to come say that, for example, Sunnism was founded by a Jew in Damascus, someone would just ask, what is your source? SubhanAllah, we have to provide a source for everything we say, but our opponents just make stuff up, as is the sunnah of their salaf. Now, with that being said, let us go into the refutation of this shubha of Kufa being the city of liars. When it comes to the city of Kufa being the city of liars, we have sort of touched on this in some of our other videos regarding the biographies of prominent Sahaba who lived in Kufa, as well as our polemics related to al-Imam al-Hussein, salamullahi alayh. But I think the best way to respond to this is just simply to point to the books of the Mukhalifin, and we'll see what their scholars have to say regarding al-Kufa. Firstly, this is Kitab Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah, by Bukhari's teacher, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shaybah. On page 178 of volume 18, he has a chapter called Ma Dhukira fi Fadl al-Kufa. As in, he has an entire chapter of the merits of al-Kufa. Right off the bat, things are about to get interesting, because apparently the city of liars is a very praiseworthy city, according to the Mukhalifin. Now, within this chapter, there are many, many interesting reports, and we're going to go over just a few of them. The first reports are what Sayyidina Salman al-Farisi, salamullahi alayh, is reported to have said about Kufa. So the first report, hadith 34,620, it reads as follows. He narrates with his chain to Jundub al-Azdi, who says, خرجنا مع سلمان إلى الحيرة فالتفت إلى الكوفة فقال قبة الإسلام ما من أخصاص يدفع عنها ما يدفع عن هذه إلا أخصاص كان بها محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ولا تذهب الدنيا حتى يجتمع كل مؤمن فيها أو رجل هواه إليها. And the Muhaqqiq says in the bottom, the footnote here says it is Hasan, Isnaduhu Hasan. And then the next report right after it, Salman salamullahi alayhi says, al-Kufa qubbatul Islam. Now, to translate these reports for you, the report says that Salman salamullahi alayhi looked at Kufa and said, Kufa is the dome of Islam. There is no reed hut that will be as protected as this one is protected, except for the reed huts in which Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam was. So first thing, as we see in both reports, he's saying Kufa is the dome of Islam. It symbolizes the power of Islam. It is the pride of the Islamic world. And Allah will protect the houses in Kufa the same way He protected the homes of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then, of course, he says the world will not come to an end until every believer or a man whose inclination is towards it gathers in it. As in, there will come a time where a mu'min either lives in Kufa or wants to live in Kufa. And this kadhab is sitting here telling us it is the city of liars. Secondly, we read on page 181, is a few pages later, he narrates with the same chain, he has repeated the same report عن سلمان الكوفة قبة الإسلام يأتي على الناس زمان لا يبقى فيها مؤمن إلا بها أو قلبه يهوى إليها. And then he also comments that this hadith is Hasan. So we have a full chapter. We're not going to read every report in this chapter because that would make the video too long. However, you can see the reference and you can refer back to the book for yourself. Now, Salman is not the only person who praised Kufa. Let's see what the Faruq of the Mukhalifin had to say about Kufa. And by the Faruq, I mean none other than their hero, Umar ibn al-Khattab. In the same chapter on page 180, we see the following. We see that there are a couple of chains to Umar ibn al-Khattab where he praises Kufa and expresses his opinion of the city. The first report, and this is hadith number, again on page 180, hadith 34,625, عن نافع بن جبير قال كتب عمر بن الخطاب إلى أهل الكوفة إلى وجوه الناس. And this report is منقطع. The second report عن الشعبي أن عمر كتب إلى أهل الكوفة إلى رأس العرب. MashaAllah, when al-Sha'bi's reports are useful to them, they accept them. But here, the report is munqati'. The next report says, عن عامر, and I believe this is al-Sha'bi once again, كتب عمر إليهم إلى رأس أهل الإسلام. The next one, يأتي على الناس زمان يخيم كل مؤمن بالكوفة. This one is not from Umar. The last one, قال عمر الكوفة رمح الله وكنز الإيمان وجمجمة العرب. يحرزون ثغورهم ويمدون الأمصار. Now, to translate, what do all these reports say? The first report says that Umar wrote to the people of Kufa, to the leaders of the people. The second report, Umar wrote to the people of Kufa, to the heads of the Arabs. The third report says that he wrote to the people of Kufa, to the head of the people of Islam. The next one from Muhammad ibn Fudayl from al-Ajlah, from Abi Hudayl. This one is not from Umar, but he says a time will come upon people when every believer will reside in Kufa. And then the last one from Shamr that Umar said, Kufa is the spear of Allah, the treasure of faith, and the skull of the Arabs. They protect their frontiers and support the cities. So we see that their Faruq, it would almost appear that his favorite city, out of all the cities that the Muslims founded, was al-Kufa. And feel free to go back to Kitab al-Ma'rifa wa-Tarikh by al-Fasawi in volume 2, page 310. Once again, a chapter regarding what Umar had to say about Kufa, and you will find very similar reports there. Now, another report from Sahih al-Bukhari highlights who the people of Kufa were. If we go to Kitab Sahih al-Bukhari by Ibn Bardazbah al-Irani al-Majusi al-Sovieti, he says the following in Hadith 3743. We read in Sahih al-Soviet Union that he says the following with his chain to Ibrahim. He says, Al-Qama went to Ash-Sham, and when he entered the mosque, he said, "O Allah, bless me with a pious companion." So he sat with Abu Darda, who is a Sahabi. Abu Darda asked him, "Where are you from?" Al-Qama replied, "From the people of Kufa." Abu Darda says, "Isn't there among you the keeper of the secret which nobody else knows, i.e. Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman?" Al-Qama said yes. Then Abu Darda said, "Isn't there among you the person whom Allah gave refuge from shaitan through the invocation of his prophet, namely Ammar ibn Yasir?" Al-Qama replied in the affirmative. Abu Darda then said, "Isn't there among you the person who carries the siwak or the secret of the prophet, namely Abdullah ibn Mas'ud?" Al-Qama said yes. Now, here in Sahih al-Bukhari, there is a Sahih report saying that among the people of Kufa is the Tabi'i Al-Qama and the three Sahaba, Hudhayfah, Ammar, and Ibn Mas'ud. According to Adnan Rashid, these people are all liars. This is the city of liars. Abu Darda says it is apparently the city of these three Sahaba. Bukhari says it is the city of these three Sahaba, but our opponents would like you to believe that it is the city of liars. Apparently, the Sahaba are kadhabin. Apparently, the Mukhalifin believe that the Sahaba are all liars. Lastly, I wish to quote the book of a prominent Syrian Sunni scholar, and I believe this man was one of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood in Syria. This is Kitab al-Sunnah wa Makanataha fi al-Tashri' al-Islami by Dr. Mustafa Sabba'i, page 453. We read the following. He says, وبعد انتقال علي سلام الله عليه وقراء الصحابة إلى الكوفة ازداد الاهتمام بتفقيه أهلها إلى أن أصبحت الكوفة لا مثيل لها في أمصار المسلمين في كثرة فقهائها ومحدثيها والقائمين بعلوم القرآن وعلوم اللغة العربية فيها، من حيث سكن أفصح القبائل العربية حولها، وكثرة من نزل بها من كبار الصحابة. فكبار أصحاب علي سلام الله عليه وابن مسعود لو دونت تراجمهم في كتاب خاص لأتى كتابا ضخما وأبلغ العجل عدد الصحابة الذين سكنوا الكوفة فقط إلى 1500 صحابي، فضلا عن باقي بلدان العراق. And for my English-speaking brothers, we'll translate this. He says, after Ali and the Quran reciters among the companions moved to Kufa, attention to educating its people in Islamic jurisprudence increased. Kufa eventually became unparalleled among the Muslim cities for the numbers of its jurists, hadith transmitters, Quran scholars, and experts in the Arabic language. This was due to the settlement of the most eloquent Arab tribes around it and the large number of prominent companions who lived there, the senior companions of Ali and Ibn Mas'ud. If their biographies were documented in a dedicated book, it would result in an extensive volume. It would be a very large book. Al-Ijli estimated the number of Sahaba who resided in Kufa alone to be 1,500, not to mention those in other parts of Iraq. Now, the so-called historian is calling it the city of liars, but the consensus among the early Sahaba, among the reports of the Mukhalifin, among even modern Sunni scholarship or contemporary Sunni scholarship, is that al-Kufa was integral to the development of the Islamic civilization, whether it be when it comes to jurisprudence, when it comes to tafsir, when it comes to grammar, when it comes to Quran, and of course, when it comes to hadith. And if we wanted to, we could definitely quote more reports highlighting the interesting role of Kufa, but anyone with even a basic understanding of Islamic history can go back and read about the important status of this city as well as its role in the development of Islam. Now then, with that being said, we move on to the next part of our refutation.
You're saying Shia religion was not born in Kufa?
No.
Your narrators, 4 of them, Abu Basir, Hishamain, and Zurara. Would you agree if you take these 4 out, majority of the Shia tradition is out?
Yeah, of course.
So Shiaism depends on 4 people. If they are truthful, Shia religion is true. If they are liars, Shia religion is a lie. These 4 people, where do they come from?
They are Kufans.
Okay. Everyone listening? The majority of the reports from the Imams come from these 4 individuals. When they say follow the Ahlul Bayt, they are actually telling us to follow the 4 people. This is the game they play and no one knows about this game.
Here, the Kadhab claims that our religion mainly goes back to 4 people. This is what is known as a Mott and Bailey fallacy. What he is essentially trying to do is he is trying to portray the Shia religion as going back to 4 narrators, as though having 4 people mainly narrating from the Imam somehow means that they are the ones who innovated the religion. Now, what's ironic is that the Sunnis also have 4 individuals who, instead of narrating their fiqh, their jurisprudence from the Prophet, they quite literally made up their own rules. Now, with that being said, I wish to respond to this in a very, very simple way. First of all, the argument that most of Imam al-Sadiq's reports comes by way of Iraqis is a very tired argument that many of the Mukhalifin use. And we respond to it very simply by saying, if you go back to the biography of Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayh, for example in Kitab Tahdhib al-Kamal by al-Mizzi, when he is listing the people who narrate from Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayh, we find that most of the people that he has listed are actually from Kufa. So, according to the logic of this kadhab, that would indicate that the Sunni religion was invented in Kufa, or that their reports don't actually come from the Ahlul Bayt, but they were fabricated by the Kufan liars. So I will provide a few examples of this. Firstly, Aban ibn Taghlib, Hafs ibn Ghiyath, Sufyan al-Thawri, Sufyan ibn Uyayna. MashaAllah, the Sufyanain are among the Kufan liars. Al-Hasan ibn Salih, Amr ibn Qais al-Mala'i, Al-Hasan ibn Ayyash, Muhammad ibn Maymun al-Za'farani, Muawiyah ibn Ammar al-Duhani, and of course, Abu Hanifa. Out of the narrators that we have found to be reliable in the Sunni books that narrate from Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayh, we have 20 of them. This is compared to 13 reliable Medinian narrators in the Sunni books. So we, in turn, would ask the Mukhalifin, why are most of your reliable narrations from Imam al-Sadiq coming by way of people from Kufa when Imam al-Sadiq lived in Medina? It's almost as though that people have forgotten that in the Islamic Golden Age, people used to travel. With that being said, we are going to move on to his next point. He says that it comes from Kufa and not from Medina. Now, the ironic thing is that if you look in the Shia books, just as we have narrators from Kufa, we have narrators from Medina. For example, we have al-Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayhi's own son, al-Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. You have Muhammad ibn Ishaq, Sahib al-Sirah, he is a Medinian. You have al-Husayn ibn Zayd ibn Ali, who is the son of Zayd al-Shaheed salamullahi alayhi. He was one of the disciples of al-Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayhi. You have Umar ibn Ali ibn al-Husayn, and you have many others. The final point that I wish to go over, and this will segue us into other important refutations which we will be bringing to you inshallah, is that our opponent here, he claims that the religion goes back to 4 people, and 4 of these 4 people are kadhabin, and he mainly seems to have an issue with Zurara ibn A'yun, Abu Basir, and the Hishamain, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. However, I do not wish to go over this because I believe some of the other brothers will do an outstanding job of going over the reports from our books, highlighting that these men were in fact not liars. However, there is one thing that I would like to point out. According to Ibn Taymiyya in his book Ar-Rad al-Subki, he says the following. And this is just a general rule that we want to present to our Shia brothers. Whenever you hear this coming up in an argument, you can simply use this as a very simple point for refutation. In his book Ar-Rad al-Subki, on page 697 to page 698, we read him say the following. He says, وَالرَّافِضَةِ, that's us, يَجْعَلُونَهُمْ مَعْصُومِينَ, i.e. the Imams, كالرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ويجعلون كل ما قالوا قوله نقلا عن الرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ويجعلون إجماع طائفتهم حجة معصومة وعلى هذه الأصول الثلاثة بنوا شرائع دينهم ولكن جمهور ما ينقلونه من الشريعة موافق لقول جمهور المسلمين فيه ما هو من مواقع الإجماع وفيه ما فيه نزاع بين أهل السنة فليس الغالب فيما ينقلونه عن هؤلاء الأئمة من مسائل الشرع الكذب بل الغالب عليه الصدق وفيه ما هو كذب خطأ وعمدا بلا ريب وأقوالهم كأقوال نظرائهم من أئمة المسلمين. And the translation is as follows. The Shia consider their Imams to be infallible like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they attribute everything they say to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They also regard the consensus of their sect as an infallible authority. Based on these 3 principles, they have established their religious laws. However, the majority of what they derive from the Islamic Sharia is in agreement with the majority of Muslims, and there are areas of consensus. Ibn Taymiyyah here is admitting that the majority of the fiqh that the Shia have is actually, in fact, acceptable, and it is in agreement with the majority of the Muslims. And there are areas of consensus. Some matters are disputed among Sunni Muslims. The prevalent view is that the statements attributed to these Imams by the Shia regarding matters of Islamic law are generally truthful. So subhanAllah, this dirty secret that the Mukhalifin want to keep from you, and they want to keep from their followers, is that according to their great Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, the vast majority of what the Shia attribute to the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt is in fact truthful. Then he comments, of course, however, there might be instances of unintentional or deliberate falsehood, which, I mean, even the Sunnis have that. They have narrators in their books that are liars. Alhamdulillah, we have scholars, we have books of Rijal that allow us to detect these fabrications and to detect these liars. He says their statements are treated similarly to their counterparts among the Muslim scholars, end quote. Lastly, we will quote the words of his student, Ibn al-Qayyim, who echoes his teacher's comments regarding the Shia and their narrators. In his kitab, As-Sawa'iq al-Mursala ala al-Jahmiyya wal-Mu'attila, he says the following, and this is in volume 1, page 616 to page 617. He says, and he is, of course, writing about a matter of Islamic law, so this can be must be read within the context of what he's saying. He says, Al-Wajh al-Tasi', the 9th point, إن فقهاء الإمامية من أولهم إلى آخرهم ينقلون عن أهل البيت أنه لا يقع الطلاق المحلوف به وهذا متواتر عندهم عن جعفر بن محمد سلام الله عليه وغيره من أهل البيت. ووهب أن مكابر كذبهم كلهم. I think that could be وذهب أن مكابرا كذبهم كلهم. وقال قد تواطؤوا على الكذب عن أهل البيت عليهم السلام، ففي القوم فقهاء وأصحاب علم ونظر في الاجتهاد وإن كانوا مخطئين مبتدعين في أمر الصحابة. It's something that must be highlighted. ولا يوجب ذلك الحكم عليهم كلهم بالكذب والجهل، وقد روى أصحاب الصحيح عن جماعة من الشيعة وحملوا حديثهم واحتج به المسلمون، ولم يزل الفقهاء ينقلون خلافهم ويبحثون معهم، والقوم وإن أخطأوا في بعض المواضع لم يلزم من ذلك أن يكون جميع ما قالوه خطأ حتى يرد عليهم هذا ولو انفردوا بذلك عن الأمة. And the English translation is as follows. The ninth point, and again he's discussing a matter of Islamic law, and I believe it is a matter related to divorce. He says the scholars of the Imami Shia from their earliest figures to the most recent consistently report from the people of the Prophet's household that conditional divorce does occur. This is a well-established belief among them attributed to Ja'far ibn Muhammad and other members of the Prophet's household. It should be noted that accusing them all of lying is baseless, which subhanAllah, that is all our opponents seem to do. Some argue that they have conspired to tell lies about the people of the Prophet's household. And we say, subhanAllah, this so-called doctor believes an entire city conspired, not just a few individuals. However, there are Shia scholars who are learned and have made independent scholarly judgments. While they may have errors and innovations concerning the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, it does not necessitate labeling all of them as liars and ignorant. In fact, the Sunni tradition has recorded hadith from some Shia scholars, and subhanAllah, Dhahabi says that without them the hadith corpus would be ruined, that they need the Shia narrators, which were cited by Muslims as evidence. The scholars continue to document their differences and engage in discussions with them. Even if they make mistakes in certain matters, it doesn't mean that everything they say is wrong, even if they differ from the rest of the community. Now, I wish to conclude by pointing out a few points. First of all, what Ibn Taymiyya and Ibn al-Qayyim are saying is a far cry from what modern mukhalifin say. Modern mukhalifin will claim that everything in al-Kafi is a lie. They'll claim that everything in ما لا يحضره الفقيه التهذيب الاستبصار الإرشاد إلى آخره, they claim it's all a lie, it's all Shia fabrications, it's all Kufan fabrications. As you can clearly see, that is not what their Salaf, what their great Shaykh al-Islam and his student believed. On the contrary, they believe that the majority of what the Shia transmit from their Imams is reliable and it is truthful. Now, the second thing that's really important here is we see that Ibn al-Qayyim says that the major issue that they have with the Shia is their position regarding the Sahaba. He says, وَإِن كَانُوا مُخْطِئِينَ مُبْتَدِعِينَ فِي أَمْرِ الصَّحَابَةِ. That is the number one issue that he brings up. Why then is it that today, when it comes to our mukhalifin, the vast majority of them run for the hills when you bring up, let's debate Adalat al-Sahaba. Let's debate whether the Sahaba should be figures that we take our religion from. Instead, they wish to make it a debate of tawheed. They wish to make it a debate of random issues of fiqh, and so on and so forth. But with that being said, regarding the four narrators that he mentioned, Zurara, the Hishamain, and Abu Basir, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, I'm going to leave that to the other brothers to go over, inshallah, and I hope you all benefited from this video, you benefited from the evidences that we have given you, and we'll catch you next time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.